I'm Brittany Murphy with 4 Leaf Photography.
What do you have to know any subject in photography?
As far as like a school subject that I think that I probably use most, I definitely use a lot of math because, you know, photography is a business, so, you know, I do charge people for a service that I perform. So, you know, I use math to calculate cost, and I use math with just budgeting for my business and, you know, what I'm spending versus what I'm bringing in. And then also, I think with photography itself, I do use a lot of math calculations in my settings, and as far as like the technical aspect. So there's a lot of math. I'd say that that's probably the subject that I use the most.
What is your style in photography and why?
I think that my style, my personal style, not necessarily what I photograph, but my personal style of shooting is I like for things to look realistic, and, you know, and I like for it to be punchy and fun and energetic, and I like a lot of color, because I think that that's, you know, I like that style versus like a really washed out, you know, like glowy kind of look to my pictures, because they're real. And it's a more of a photojournalistic style, like candid versus, you know, superposed.
Okay. Is being a photographer hard or light?
Being a photographer is definitely difficult, sometimes more than others. You know, you're working with people who you don't know personally, and you don't necessarily always know, you know, what their personal style is or what they might like about themselves or what they don't like. You know, I might look at my subject that I'm photographing and think that something that they're doing is awesome, and they may hate it. So it forces you to really be a people person, to try and read them and what you think they're gonna like and what you think, you know, is going to make them happy, while still reflecting your own personal style as far as what makes you different from other people. And then, you know, it's a lot of work too. It's like you're constantly thinking of a million different things at once, because, you know, if I'm shooting natural light photography without any extra gear other than my camera stuff, then I'm worried about, you know, the clouds moving and changing the light, and I'm worried about my settings on my camera, because I might get wrapped into, you know, working with people and then not realize that the clouds have moved and now it's a lot brighter, and then my camera settings are off. So you're constantly thinking of a lot of different things at once. You're thinking about keeping the energy good for the people that you're working with, and you're thinking about, you know, the technical settings of your equipment. And then if I do introduce external equipment like flashes or strobe lights, or, you know, all these different types of equipment that I use, and I'm constantly thinking about where they're placed, if they're in my shot, where can I put it to get it, you know, achieve the look that I want. So it is hard. And then there's a lot of pressure too, you know. I mean, with certain things that I photograph, like take kids for example, you know, kids a lot of times will have a shorter attention span than maybe adults, and, you know, kids kind of have to do their own thing, and so you're restricted to a very short window of time to get, you know, where they're happy and they're, you know, okay for pictures, and then they might need a break. So, you know, it's a lot of pressure, but it's definitely very rewarding.
How many years did it take you to make? How many years did it take you to make you an official photographer?
An official photographer, I think, you know, that's personal choice and personal, you know, whatever you think, you know. But as far as being a professional photographer, you know, photography has been a hobby of mine since I was young, like your age. I've always liked pictures, and I liked, you know, just the idea of having memories that you can look back on. So I started off as a hobbyist for years, and then when I decided to actually try and make it something that I do full time, it took a long time. It took a few years, definitely. Once I made that decision, I would say it probably took like a good 2 to 3 years of learning and practicing and just absorbing as much information as I could, and then of course acquiring all of the gear that it takes to, you know, pull off a job professionally. So, I mean, probably a good, like 2 to 4 years before I actually felt that I was more of a professional.
Do you work for a company or yourself?
Both. I work for myself. I have my own business. And then I also work for a studio where we do other types of photography.
How many hours do you work each day?
That one is a little bit harder to answer, only because it varies from day to day. I might have one day where I'm in the studio or I'm on a location for 16 to 18 hours. Like if I'm shooting a full wedding day, well, my day starts early in the morning and it doesn't quit until everybody leaves the reception, so it's a long day. Then I have other days where I may not have any shoots scheduled, but I'm on the computer and I'm working and I'm editing all the photos. And then, I might have days where I don't have anything going on, or I, don't feel like doing anything that day. But, so yeah, it really varies. It can go from nothing to, 18, 19-hour days.
What is the hardest part in your job? And why?
The hardest part of my job, is making sure that you're always on. Like, you always have to be focused on, making sure you're meeting your deadlines and making sure that your clients are happy. And I think that would probably be the hardest part. I don't really think that my job is very hard because I've been doing it so long that, once you kind of get the hang of it and you learn better what you're doing. But, really, that's the difficult part too, is just making sure that you stay current with like the new technology that's out there and learning all this stuff, and you're constantly learning new things and buying new equipment and just making sure you stay on top of your deadlines. That's really
What
important.
is your favorite to photograph?
I would love if I could photograph nothing but like weddings. I just am completely in love with weddings. I can't really explain it. I just, I guess I'm a hopeless romantic, and so I love literally everything about it. I love all the little details, and I love planning them, and I love I just really love weddings. So that's definitely my favorite part. And I think that for any girl or anyone who's romantic at all, like, you're always going to look back at that as, one of the most awesome days of your life. And to know that I have a part in that, like, I help you remember that, 50 years from now when your mom and your dad have all these wedding photos, like, I'm a part of that. Like, I